现在订阅同盟会英语，不论找工作、升学或英检，表现更棒。快上
StudioClassroom.com。
现在请收听教学节目。
Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Join us today as we stop and smell the roses. We talked yesterday about taking deep breaths, and we're doing that. We're stopping to smell the roses. We're relaxing. Speaking of roses, it's Mother's Day tomorrow, so happy Mother's Day to all of you moms. Andrea is here. She's a mom. Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you so much.
So we hope that you do something nice for your mom. This article isn't really about Mother's Day in particular, but it can apply. We're talking about enjoying the small things in life, and we hope that as you stop and spend time with your mom tomorrow, that you're able to just enjoy that time, to live in the present. And that's what this article is really all about. Life happens in the in-between. And it says here, Manya, to stop chasing achievement. Does that get your attention?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What is your reaction to that?
Well, it's funny because I feel like, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like growing up, I've been taught to chase achievement, that we're always working towards something big, whether that's just finishing high school, going to college, graduating, getting a job. Like, these are achievements. These are big things. And it feels like your whole life you're working towards these goals.
Yeah. It's not bad, of course, to have goals. It's not bad to have motivation, and all those things are good. But, you know, we have to know when to stop, right? If we just chase after that all the time, other things in life that are even more important, like family, for example, can suffer or will suffer. So stop chasing achievement and learn to appreciate the small things.
So how small are we talking about?
That's
No,
a good,
I'm kidding.
that's a good question. Like, you can be thankful for the smallest of things, right? That happen. We can just pass by that stuff so quickly in our busyness in life, can't we, Andrea? You know, and maybe you have some examples of that, Andrea, just enjoying or learning to appreciate the small things. How do you interpret that for your own life?
Well, what came to mind as you said that, you started our session by talking about roses. And I have a poster that I've traveled with me all around the world. It's just been part of my life for a while.
Okay.
And the poster says, "Gather the roses of life today." And I think that's what it is. I mean, you know, just taking time to notice the rose, notice the flower, notice the little things, taking time to enjoy it, to cherish it, to remember it. And sometimes it is just those little things in life that we appreciate.
Yeah. And giving it space, right? You know, we just rush by that stuff. But if you notice something and you recognize that as being good and you reflect on it, take a little bit of time to do that. I think, Manya, when we just rush past that stuff, it doesn't really go down deep within us, within our soul, so to speak, and we lose out on the beauty of it.
Yes, and I think over time it's also easy for a dissatisfaction to settle in your life, and you may not know why.
Exactly. We're discontent with everything, right? Because we don't appreciate even the small things, right? We're always waiting for some big, huge thing to happen, but chances are that's not going to happen very often.
Right.
So we need to appreciate the small things in life.
Yeah. I think that as a mom, I've been challenged in this way with my kids, because kids sometimes notice the small things a lot more than we do.
Right.
Like this morning, my son came to my bedroom so excited because he was able to kill a fly with one hand. And he was so excited. This was the biggest achievement of his day. And for me, I'm like, well, this is just, I did share in his excitement. But I thought, that is just appreciating a small thing. This was a real victory for him.
Yeah.
And it was just a sweet moment to share with him. A small part of my day, but it made a difference.
And some things that may seem small to us may be big to someone else as well, right?
That's a good point.
And
yes.
so I think it helps us to remember that we don't always have to have such a high bar for appreciating things. And I can definitely, relate to that and learn from that. So we're on page 19. I love this article, and I hope that as you reflect on your time with your mom tomorrow and just about life, you can really stop and enjoy the small things. We're on page 19. We'll have our first reading down through line 15.
Stop chasing achievement and learn to appreciate the small things. As I've gotten older, I have learned that appreciating the little things has become more difficult in a world fixated on achievement and meeting your next career milestone. You're often encouraged to celebrate your big successes and then curate them for social media, which means that these smaller, simpler moments in your day tend to go unnoticed. In her inspiring Netflix special, The Call to Courage, acclaimed author and University of Houston professor Brené Brown makes the case for the following.
All right. Don't we just love getting older?
Yeah.
Oh, we do.
Well, at least hopefully we have wisdom, and there's beauty in like getting older, like good things, right? You sort of learn more about who you are and what you like, hopefully, and hopefully some lessons that you've learned along the way. And that's what we hear from this writer. She says, as I've gotten older, I've learned that appreciating the little things has become more difficult in a world fixated on achievement, right? Fixated on something. You're just focused on it, right? That's like your number one goal. What can I achieve? How can I get ahead? How can I make more money, right? And if you live in that cycle, you realize you can lose your heart, right? You don't know what you're living for. What is your purpose in life? Because this will not really be fulfilling. So a lot of people are focused on that. And also the idea, Manya, of meeting your next career milestone. What is a milestone?
A milestone is usually a big achievement, a big event in your life.
Something that you mark, right?
Yes. So that could be like graduating from school, getting married, having children, things like that.
When I'm driving in the U.S., I'll see mile markers on maybe the interstate that will mark, the miles that you're going or whatever, or until the next destination or something like that. And so this is the idea of a milestone as a big thing that happens that you kind of label that, and you would want to look back on that as a major achievement, right? So you're often encouraged to celebrate your big successes and then curate them for social media, right? I usually think of someone in a museum when I hear that word curate.
Mm-hmm, right. Then that would be a curator. That's a job. They're preparing a museum for people to come and learn about the displays or artifacts that they have, right? But here in our article, it talks about curating those big successes for social media. And it's true. People want to share those milestones. You want to curate them, organize them in a way for others to see. And you really do want them to say, wow, look at what they've done, or look at what I've done.
Yeah, and we've talked about that and the implications there. And there can be a lot of issues, there's good things about it, but, there can also be negative things, of course, to go along with that. So it means that these smaller, simpler moments in your day tend to go unnoticed. Now, especially in the past, some people would also put some of those things on Facebook, and you don't know why, but like too much information kind of thing. But in general, we don't put those small, simpler moments up on social media. And it kind of can give you the idea that, life is full of excitement every single moment, but it's not. And so I guess, how do we get at the point where we just stop and smell the roses and really celebrate those small things? So I want to ask Manya and Andrea, is there anything that you do, something practical that helps you to kind of stop and celebrate those small wins or to appreciate the simpler moments in life?
Well, I guess being a mom, this is kind of, as I've shared earlier, kind of something that's meant a lot to me. I once read I guess it's a Facebook meme or something that said, in your life, it's actually the small things that are the big things. And as a mom, I've tried to really be intentional about this, like to focus more on the smaller things that happen with my kids. Like, yes, it's exciting to plan birthday parties and go on trips and, have fun play dates and things like that. But sometimes it's honestly just those moments in the morning when they wake up and are maybe just sitting with me on the couch, and just those simple little conversations that we'll have. So I really try to be mindful of that. Another thing that's really challenged me is oftentimes we focused on firsts, right? Like your first job, your first car, first love. With kids, their first steps, their first day of school. But we don't really think about the lasts. And sometimes it's those lasts that are really special. Like the one day I was helping my son get his shoes on. He's 5 years old now, and sometimes he still needs help. But then I realized, looking at him with his shoes on, he doesn't need my help anymore doing that. And I just thought about, when was the last time I helped him with his shoes?
Yeah.
And that might just be a little thing, but I try to capture those moments, like the lasts, not always the firsts. Or even if I don't capture it, like, this is the last time I helped him put his shoes on, but just being mindful of, oh, wow, maybe we've reached a new stage and to enjoy that.
And I love that story, Andrea, because I feel that if we're so focused on achievement, then we will miss out on that, right? So what can we do to stop and enjoy those small moments, right? I think we kind of lose a part of ourselves when we just brush over all of that. We hear from Brene Brown. We've discussed, talked about or referenced her in the past and advanced, and she is quite famous. She has a Netflix special called The Call to Courage. She's an acclaimed author and university professor. Acclaimed means that she's written enough books and stuff to get some praise, hasn't she? Anya?
Yes. I can't think of the books. The titles of the books.
And it's not about the amount that she's written, but anyway, acclaim just means she's praised, right? That people really praise her for the work that she's done. And she's done some studies and stuff like that, and quite fascinating, actually. And she makes the case for the following, right? And we'll get to the following a little bit later. What does it mean, Andrea, to make the case for something?
When you make the case for something, you argue that something is the best thing to do, or you give your reasons. So like a lawyer will make a case in court, and they're giving the evidence. So when you make a case for something, you're trying to persuade people to believe what you believe.
All right, so we'll see what Brene Brown is trying to persuade us to believe as we go to our next reading.
Learning to love the ordinary. Don't be so busy chasing extraordinary that you miss ordinary, Brown advises. Taking a moment to commit to how we feel in ordinary moments can be very powerful. When I first started out as a freelance journalist several years ago, I remember being told by colleagues to love the process over the outcome because there were so many unknowables that came with the job. By paying attention to these less remarkable moments, I had to let go of my self-imposed expectations and find meaning in the work itself.
Extraordinary. We want that in our lives, right? But it says here, Brown tells us, don't be so busy chasing extraordinary that you miss ordinary. She's telling us here to learn to love the ordinary. Now, I have a hard time with this. I mean, who doesn't want something that's extraordinary? But learning to love those small things in life, I think, is going to add more value to your life because those happen every day, Andrea. The extraordinary doesn't always happen. And so it's like if you're sitting there waiting for that to happen, you're going to miss out on a lot of life.
Absolutely. And I like what Brown advises. She says, taking a moment to commit to how you feel in ordinary moments can be very powerful.
What does she mean by that?
Well, you're taking the time to commit. So you're committing to the moment. You're embracing the moment that you're in. And, it's okay to feel ordinary. It's okay to not have, bells and whistles and sparkles and fireworks all the time.
Yeah.
But just enjoying those ordinary moments. And it is powerful.
Absolutely. Well, we hear from the author here. She says when she first started as a freelance journalist, which is a type of journalist, maybe they, write something in different newspapers or something, use their material. They don't work for just one, newspaper, so to speak. So when she first started out, she was told something by her colleagues. What did they tell her, Manya?
They told her to love the process over the outcome because there were many unknowables. And what that means is there are a lot of factors that you just can't consider. You don't know what's going to happen. So you don't know if what you write will end up, for example, you may not, as a freelance journalist, sometimes the things you write, maybe it won't be used.
Yeah.
And so I guess her colleagues were telling her just enjoy the process of doing the writing or the investigating, the researching, rather than the end results.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah, I've heard another phrase, enjoy the journey. Or enjoy the journey, don't just focus on the destination. Right? So, I mean, even in a trip, if we look at it as a trip, yes, you're trying to get to a place that's really awesome and fun, but there's that whole journey in getting there. Enjoy that.
That reminds me, when I was younger and I would go on a trip, sometimes I would enjoy the time in the car more than the actual place where we were going, right? Because of the conversations, the games, or just the fun that you had there. Maybe you had a long road trip. You can have a lot of fun in that, and I think that proves the point as well. So how do we do this, right? I think is the question, right? How do we apply this to our lives? It says by paying attention to these less remarkable moments, I had to let go of my self-imposed expectations. That is huge. First of all, self-imposed just means you decided it on your own. These were her expectations, maybe. And expectations can really get us in a lot of trouble, so to speak. Like, you can have this great expectation. You're going on this trip and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best trip ever, right? But then it maybe doesn't go so well, so you're disappointed, right? We have to be careful with expectations, Manya.
Yeah, I think especially I don't know if I can say it's human nature, but it's very common for people to be very hard on themselves. So sometimes you might give yourself, you might expect way too much from yourself.
And I think that's why some people just say they don't have expectations. I mean, it's not always a good thing because sometimes it's a fear of failure.
Right.
But, okay, tomorrow's Mother's Day. So when I first became a mom, I had major expectations about Mother's Day. I'm like, this is my day. I will be treated with
like a queen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that was my expectation, that the kids would not act out, that everything would be absolutely perfect. But in the end, my expectations were dashed, and it was just an ordinary day. I mean, maybe there were a few fun moments in there, but I kind of learned sometimes your expectations are not realistic, and it doesn't have to be this big thing, but just to enjoy the ordinary.
So how do you both kind of control expectations? Because I really feel, I know in my own life, this is a struggle. Like, you have this expectation is not met, and therefore you are not happy, right? And that's not the right way to go about it, right? Because if you have these high expectations with everything, you're going to be constantly disappointed. So what do you do to try to sort of have the proper expectations, or maybe in some situations, no expectations, Manya?
That's really hard because it depends on what we're talking about. If it involves other people, then I think a lot of times you have to evaluate the relationship, the circumstance, and everything. But if it's just something with myself, then I just have to, I constantly remind myself to have a little grace even for myself, but to also make goals. So then I can get a more realistic understanding of if my expectations are realistic or not.
So have goals and show yourself some grace. I think that is a phrase maybe some of us have never heard, or you haven't really implemented that. But just to say, hey, yeah, I messed up, but it's not the end of the world, and we'll try to correct that. And recognize it, but don't spend too much time on that quote-unquote failure or mistake, right? How about you, Andrea? What do you do to try to kind of regulate those expectations?
No, I agree with what has just been shared. I think that sometimes if expectations were dashed, they didn't go as they should have, or what my mind thought, I sometimes feel like, okay, well, the whole day is ruined, or the whole vacation's ruined, or everything's ruined.
Yeah.
So I've kind of learned, okay, look at the moments.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, we had a rough moment. Let's move forward and, make the next moment better.
Don't let that bad moment define your whole trip before it's even occurred. Like the rest of the trip doesn't even happen, and you're letting it define. Yeah.
Exactly. Because there's so many moments I miss out when I have that grudge, or if I'm just not going to talk anymore. Because, honestly, I do not respond the right way many times.
Yes. Right.
So just think about holding a grudge, or what you will lose from that, instead of what you can gain by just embracing the next moment and moving on.
And this applies to so many areas of life, it applies to marriages, right? I remember seeing that advice, right before I got married, which was not that long ago, just like expectations, right? If you have unrealistic expectations, you're going to be disappointed. And this applies to so many areas of life. Well, next we're going to learn about life and what happens in the in-between. What is that referring to? We'll find out as we go to our last reading for today.
Life happens in the in-between. It's so much harder to focus on the ordinary when you're caught up in the bustle of trying to meet goals, but experts suggest you can significantly improve your overall mood by jotting down 3 good things that happen to you each day and your role in them. By doing so, you can also stop focusing on external results and change the way you perceive happiness and success. As a writer, I often have to step back from my constant urge to achieve and give myself permission to linger on the space in between. The place where I'm growing. This means slowing down for one, but it's also about appreciation, taking note of the little things throughout my day that I find fulfilling. Because when you pay close attention to the things you care about, something magical happens. You stop resisting the present and consider what's truly valuable.
When we say life happens in the in-between, what are we getting at, Andrea?
Well, it means that life, what really matters, the value of life, is between the moments that we are chasing, or the moments of achievement that we're looking at. It's kind of in the middle of those big milestones.
Yeah. So we're reminded here again that we lose sight of the ordinary when we're caught up in the busyness of life. We're trying to meet goals. Goals are good, but we don't want to get overly focused on them, or we'll miss out on something else that's very good. So experts suggest you can significantly improve your overall mood by doing something very simple, but it takes a little bit of time. What is it, Manya?
You can jot down 3 good things that happen to you each day and your role in them. So that means quickly write down 3 points, or just 3 things that happen in that.
Yeah.
And then, and that's it.
Do you all do anything like that, or have you done something like that in the past?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you consistent with it?
No, so I, again, it's that expectation thing. Like, I know if I try to do this every single day, I won't be able to do it. But if I give myself the goal of, I'm going to do this every day for 1 month, then that's more achievable for me. And so I have had different times in my life where I'll consistently do it for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
And it makes a huge difference, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I've done it, but usually I do it on tough days or rough days, bad days. Like I just need to focus on something good.
Right.
So I'm not
that's good.
consistent with
Yeah.
it, but it does help me get through a tougher time. But I also think it's good to do this on those great days and
Yes.
days where you
Absolutely.
felt really good.
And you can go back and look at it on the hard days. Right?
Exactly.
And, you don't even have to necessarily write it down. You can stop and reflect, just in your mind, think about 3 good things, and maybe you can share that with a friend or spouse or something like that. And you can even do that as an exercise together, and that helps you to focus. And I've done this at times, and I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, there was some things that were good that happened today, and I remember it, but I forgot it, and then you look back and if you gloss over it again, that you're not really kind of getting everything you can from that, and it can inspire you and help you to remember that it wasn't such a bad day. Well, by doing this, you can stop focusing on external results and change the way you perceive happiness and success. Well, that's a big topic. Happiness, I think, we've discussed this before. If we're chasing after happiness, we will be disappointed. I don't think happiness is the point of life, right? We've talked about meaning and purpose is something that is probably a better goal, because we can't always be happy.
You're right. You're right. I mean, happiness is an emotion. It comes and goes.
Yes.
Sometimes it's our attitude in choosing it or not.
That's true. All right. Well, as a writer, I often have to step back from my constant urge to achieve and give myself permission to linger on the space in between. And I think that's what writing these things down helps us do, Manya. It helps us to slow down, doesn't it?
Yes, because we live in a fast-paced world, and our mind usually thinks so much faster than when we speak or when we do anything. And so, taking time, slowing down can really help.
Right. And as we end here, it talks about we can stop resisting the present. And a lot of times we don't live in the present. We're thinking about what's ahead, or we're looking back to something that happened, but we're not really living in the present. And sometimes we see this in conversations we have with people. We're not really listening to them. We're thinking about what we're going to do next or whatever, and we're not really living in the present. And that's important to remember.
Right. Absolutely. I often think of the phrase, be present in the present. So don't just to really be mindful of embracing the now.
Absolutely.
Or the old Chinese proverb, yesterday was history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Oh, there we go.
I love that one.
Very good. Perfect line to end on. Thank you, Manya. We are all out of time. We hope that you've enjoyed this month's psychology article. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Andrea and Manya, for joining us as well. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.